welcome to the first episode of the Bold New Ideas Podcast, an unofficial BNI podcast where we dive deep into the minds of BNI members who are revolutionizing their industries with new ideas for growth and with growth strategies, right? So in this series, we're going to really explore and dive into unique ideas from different business owners, success stories from entrepreneurs, how they are impacting their industries in different ways for them to be able to help you grow your business at the end of the day. This, at the end of the day, is for you guys. So thanks for joining along. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or you're just starting out, this podcast is going to be for you and really providing actionable insights on how we can all grow our business with networking and different strategies too. So
yeah, we're gonna touch on a lot of different industries. It's not just all going to be about marketing. It'll be personal trainers, accountants. We're going to kind of try to get a wide variety of industries and professionals to give you a very unique and varied group of advice and stories so that you can maybe draw even more value from their specific advice, but also just generally their stories and tips and tricks from their industry.
Yeah, totally. Like even having a nutritionist on, like you got a busy work schedule. How do you go about meal planning so that you can keep up with that busy schedule and being able to activate your mind, etc., right? So
yeah.
First off, I'm Brereton Clarke. I am your co-host. I'm your host of the Bold New Ideas podcast here, and I've got my co-host here, Andrew Sorsdahl, owner of Prehistoric Productions, and I am the co-founder of Simply Better Marketing. And yeah, we are proud BNI members of BNI Living Skies. And
yeah, we're excited to talk all things entrepreneurship, networking, growth, and like Brereton said, really dive into the minds of some of our fellow members and also just other entrepreneurs and business leaders. And hopefully you'll gain something from those stories and those little tidbits. I think we've got some exciting guests already coming up down the pipe for future episodes soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. And so let's kind of give our listeners a little taste of what they can expect as well from this podcast. So this podcast isn't just going to be BNI, although we will touch on that, right? Mm-hmm. It's all going to be beyond the usual advice and really diving into what makes a business work and how to operate it so that we can all become more successful, right? So first off, Andrew, let's just dive in.
Sure.
Let's learn about Prehistoric Productions. What are you doing new in the industry? Give us the overview of a one-to-one with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Brereton. So I think the biggest thing that we're doing differently from our competitors in the space of content creation is that we first and foremost approach things as filmmakers and not just as content creators, and we really try to bring a unique and creative approach to every project that we take on. We really want to get to know our client and their brand and their business before we just dive into creating cookie cutter content solutions.
Totally.
We want to really make sure that the essence of what their brand is and who they're trying to communicate to comes through in their content. And then also, most importantly, I think with anything visual, we want to make sure it looks excellent and stands out amongst the noise. Lots of people have cell phones. Lots of people are able to, shoot photos and video on their cell phone. We want to kind of elevate the people that we work with beyond that more amateur level and bring them into that really professional thing. I guess if I was going to compare us to clothing, we would be like a finely tailored suit. If everyone else is wearing business casual, you come to us for like that nice, finely tailored suit to make you look extra special for an occasion. That's Prehistoric Productions. We're that elevated solution for video.
Definitely. I'd like to say as well, like you're not just with video and so on. You're at the end of the day, Andrew, you're a professional storyteller, right? That you take the idea of a business and be able to look at the bigger picture of things and be able to encompass it into a 90-second, 3-minute video to be able to really hone in and speak that story over to the customer, right? Because at the end of the day, that's why people buy, right? There's emotion and logic behind what we're doing. And if you can convey that emotion in a video, you're going to be able to help Cool.
And
So,
have that, like you said, have that connection to
right.
the business. Totally.
So tell me this, what actually inspired you? And let's talk about your team as well.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start Prehistoric Productions, and how did you get into video production and animation and all that?
Yeah. So I actually initially got into video production while I was in university. I thought there was this expectation that my parents had. My father was a surgeon, and I thought he had this expectation that I was gonna get some like white collar, high power, whatever job. And so I was in school to go and get my undergrad, to then go to law school. And I thought, okay, well, I'm passionate about filmmaking. I love movies. I'll be an entertainment lawyer, and that's how I'll get my taste of what I'm passionate about. And then halfway through my undergrad, I was actually able to snap up an opportunity to work as an editing assistant for a while.
Oh, cool.
And he was a fairly prominent Canadian editor at the end of his career. He edited the original Goosebumps series and like a bunch of other Canadiana stuff. I think at the time he was working on Insecurity, a CBC show. Anyway, so I worked with him for a while. And at the end of my time with him, I was pretty clear I wanted to get into film production. I wanted to be hands-on and not law school.
Yeah.
And also, the academic thing just wasn't doing it for
Get
me.
into the nitty gritty, get your hands dirty, and actually
Totally.
play into it.
So he basically, long story short, he said, you know what? I have enough contacts in the industry. You don't need to go to film school. Don't spend 40 grand a semester, 30 grand a semester on film school. I can put you in contact with people that you can learn on the job. And so that's kind of what I did. I started, I worked as a junior editor at a food marketing company in Toronto for a few years, commuting in. And during that time, I was also freelancing. So just doing, little side gigs, quick little videos here and there when I got the chance. And it was unfortunately about a month into living in Toronto and getting established. My dad actually passed suddenly from a heart attack.
I'm sorry to hear.
And thank you. And that was kind of what ultimately, after picking up the pieces from that and trying to figure out, where's my career going? Because I really liked working for myself. That was something I enjoyed right off the hop was, all the things around that and, more pressure, but more freedom too.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs can really vouch for that.
Totally.
Really resonate with, you know what, having structure of a 9 to 5 is great, but having that freedom and that ability and that pressure on yourself to be able to continually want to do better, I think that's a thing that drives so many of us.
Totally.
Right.
And that was a big factor early on. But yeah, I was getting ready to kind of figure out what the next step for my career was. And Brad, who's, business partner, running the Switcher right now, actually.
Yeah, thanks behind the camera. Hey, Brad. How you doing?
So he was finishing his undergrad at the U of S, and he said, hey, I know this band. They're friends of mine. They're awesome. There's lots of stuff going on in Saskatchewan since the tax credit was cut. You should come and just check things out, see what the market's like. And so I came for it was supposed to be a 2-week visit, and that 2-week visit turned into multiple clients. And I really saw the potential specifically in the city and the province. And then, fast forward to a year later, and it's Brad, myself, and our third partner, Francois, who he just also, the same time I was down, he happened to be on vacation from film school, and he and Brad are from the same small town in Cabri. So I knew Brad. Brad was, met Brad in boarding school, in high school. I knew Francois a little bit. So we were like, oh, Fran, come help us film this concert that we're filming. And he helped, and we just all gelled right away. There was an immediate spark. And Francois, he also, he'd done his time, was doing his time in the industry standard training and didn't like the Vancouver lifestyle, wanted to move back to Saskatchewan and wasn't sure how he could do that and work in the film industry. And so it was just kind of a match made in heaven where things just kind of serendipitously came together. And it was, that the following fall, so a year after that first 2-week visit, we incorporated, and we early on, even though it was a big stretch for us, we decided early on that we had to fully commit, had to go full time with video production, or else it was never going to take. And there was a couple of years there of like really grinding and struggling where we weren't making enough to cover things. We had to borrow from savings and family and whatever to make it through those first, couple of years.
Right, but now look at you. You got
Exactly.
all the awards in the back. You went in platinum for Best in the City for video production for 3 years in a row, I think you said, right?
Yeah, third year in a row this year, yeah.
It's amazing, man. Like you said, match made in heaven. And I think that's one thing about starting your own things. You really got to grind that out too. Those first couple of years are tough, right? I remember the same for myself too. Those first couple of years really had to grind it out, pulling from savings and really doing anything I can to be able to make that. But
oh yeah.
So once that snowball starts rolling down the hill, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And I think especially for us in a visual industry, and maybe you can relate with, the website building and stuff, for the first couple of years when you don't have that strong portfolio, you kind of have to be willing to take whatever work you can, because you can't, even though you can do it, you can't prove it. So you have to kind of take some of those lowball offers and be willing to, do what you can, because I can't show a client that I can do exactly this type of video they're asking because I don't have it in my portfolio.
No, there's some of I think my first 2 free websites I did for free. I just walked in the door of a business that I knew needed help, and I was like, you know what? I just want to build my portfolio. I want to do this for free and show you that I can do it. And I ended up being a manager at one of those companies for a while because I did so good at it.
Yeah.
Right. But that's such a cool story, Andrew. So I guess then, since you've gone ahead and you've done all of these projects now, you've become established, you've got that portfolio.
Yeah.
Can you share a memorable project with me and kind of walk through what that looked like? Who was the client? Well, you don't have to disclose the client, but yeah.
Honestly, there's 2 that come to mind. One from further back in our career, and one that's a little bit more recent. So the one from further back that was really memorable to me was we were working with, at the time we were heavily in the music industry primarily, and we had made the shift to do more of the corporate stuff. And it was our first like big budget music video for the first band that we worked with. It was several years after that first time we worked with them. We were getting to come back around and kind of do it right. And we got a big budget, and we had like a 3-day shoot and actors, and it was a whole thing. And I remember on the shoot, it was for a video for a band. I'm not sure if they're going to make a resurgence or not, but it's a band called League of Wolves. And we did a video for them for a song called Hightail. And I remember being on set and just all the moving pieces and just feeling like, wow, this is a level up from what we had been doing until that point. So that was a big moment, I think, in our career. And then more recently, we did a project with Pioneer Co-op. They're the part of Federated Co-op. They're the co-op region that is, southwestern Saskatchewan. So Swift Current and Leader and that general area from Swift Current to the Alberta border, basically. And we did this jersey reveal project with the Humboldt Broncos, the Swift Current Broncos and Co-op, and they do these jersey every year. They hired us to do this big professional reveal. We built a custom 360-degree rig, brought it on the ice, and everything just went so smoothly despite a bunch of constraints that we had. And the final product ended up just looking incredible. They broke all their records because they sell the jerseys and then donate to charity.
Yeah.
They ended up breaking like all of their records that year. And the 2 days after we released the video, the board members and the team that was responsible for that for the jerseys, they were already talking about, what are we doing next year? Next year we have to plan multiple days and do this big shoot. And so it just was very gratifying, kind of working with that next tier of client that's a big multi-million-dollar corporation.
Yeah.
And immediately having that validation of we made a difference for them.
You made an impact.
And they were already, thrilled with the work that we
Totally. And that's when projects really, really matter, and you get that fulfillment from them, is that you can really feel that impact in your client and the results that come from it, right? And especially when they're coming right back to you immediately saying, hey, let's go ahead, let's get the next one planned out.
Yeah.
and go on from there. Shout out to the Swift Current Broncos there, and we'll definitely see if we can find those projects. Let's definitely put those in the description for any of our audience to be able to
Yeah.
check those out, see your work as well. Cool. So, tell me about how do you approach creativity with different clients? Like, what does that process look like for you? And especially with like small businesses, primarily,
Yeah.
like how do you display that?
Honestly, our process is very, very similar, whether we're doing a music video or we're working with a corporation, um, or like a small business. And it really starts with that initial conversation where we, it's, could be 20 minutes, could be an hour, depending on how much there is to learn. But it really starts with us just learning about who they are, what their goals are, what's the brand, what's the history, doing that deep dive into who we're doing a piece of content for, so that we can best bring our skills to the table and showcase the pieces of their story, tell their story in a way that makes an impact with the viewer and makes them feel great. Like, one of my favorite things is, seeing a project go from that initial consultation to the completed project and seeing that reaction from the client where it's like, they have an idea. Like, we're pretty good at communicating. We're pretty good at, talking about the vision and walking it out. But unless you've done videos for a long time, it's sometimes hard to actually be able to see it in your mind until it's in front of you and the project is done.
Right, and that was going to kind of lead into my next question. What do you do with those customers where they know what they do, right?
Mhm.
And I find this a lot with small businesses, especially when we're building websites and we're trying to say, okay, like how can we get that person from point A to point B and convert into a lead? But what do you do when you have a customer that knows what they do, but doesn't quite have that vision, right? Like, how do you pull that out of them?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I honestly, it's I hate to keep harping on the communication thing, but it really is so much about that communication. And
do you have like a set questions that you use to be able to pull that out? Do you kind of have like a framework on how you're approaching those projects?
not a specific framework in terms of, we don't have like a list of written questions that we do every single time. More so a sense of just really getting to know that person, like really, and really listening, like not just like sitting there, eyes glazed over, letting them talk, actually listening for the gold of what they're saying and then trying to reflect that back for them.
Yeah.
And then also, just like, if we have a client that's, maybe they're a little unsure or they have a vision, but they're having trouble communicating it, we really try to include them in every step of production and showing them lots of proofs, including them in, after we do a take, do you want to come behind the camera and see what that looked like? Making sure that they feel comfortable and they're seeing it every step of the process, so that when we have that have taken that raw footage and we've edited it into whatever our final piece of content is, they've been comfortable every step of the way, and they've seen each step, so that when it is all polished and done, they're like, wow, it went from that thing I saw on the small screen of the camera to this nice polished finished product that I'm seeing.
But it's not a surprise at the end of the day for them. They're not just like, oh, okay, because I've had that in the past where I've done projects with people and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then at the end of the day, I don't actually know what I'm to be expecting. Right. So that's really cool that you do that. I think that's a big part with like BNI and so on, is that communication of like, how do you walk that person through it, right? Because then you're going to be able to make your BNI members better salespeople for you too, right?
I think generally, whatever business you're in, one thing that will immediately set you apart is being responsive, being communicative, having that open line of communication. It reassures people when they send you a message or an email and you get back to them in a reasonable time frame. So
totally, man. That's fantastic. I love that. So tell me about what are some of the challenges that and this kind of goes over to what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
But what are those challenges that you face in video production and how have you overcome them? Even whether it's just like operations wise with your team, customers, what do you do there?
I mean, we've been really thankful from a team's perspective that we all just really gel really well together as a team. And I hear a lot of times people complaining about like, or like they'll say to me like, how do you have business partners? Like, how do you guys like work together? And it helps that we're all friends as well as business partners. But we've also just developed this really beautiful relationship from a operation standpoint where each person's strengths and weaknesses complement the other two persons. So we kind of have everything covered between the three of us, and it works really well. So thankfully we don't have that to contend with.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest challenge that we have beyond just, uncontrollable things you have with a production when there's lots of moving pieces.
Totally.
Other than that, the biggest thing is the sales side of things in terms of, and maybe it's a Saskatchewan thing. I'm not 100% sure on that yet, but video is not a cheap service. It's there's lots that goes into it, and our expertise is valuable. And so sometimes and not as much anymore because I think we're a lot more established. But earlier on in our career, we ran into a lot of second guessing on our pricing or, just questioning the value of things.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we have ran into that as much as we did, because we had to really, build up that muscle of being able to describe what we do really well, explain the value, be really transparent about, well, it costs this much because for every 1 minute of video you see, there's X number of minutes that we shot, there's Y amount of editing that we had to do, and that all adds into the formula that we present you when it comes to our estimate or your final invoice.
Yeah, totally. I always, especially to that price point, I always think about, because we get it too, where you have people like, oh, I know someone that can do it for this price or so on, or you have like, oh, I'm going to get my nephew to do it with his phone, and like, yeah, that's all fine, but it's the difference between getting a $50 tattoo and a $500 tattoo, right? You're going to go ahead and the $500 tattoo is going to look 10 times better, and you're going to be proud to show it.
Totally.
Right? So that's a huge part of it. So let me see here. Next question. Can you share a time when a client's vision challenged you creatively? Like this is another one where your client has such a strong vision,
Yeah.
right? And almost like the complete opposite of what we were just talking about. They have such a strong vision, and how do you convey that into your process and be able to show that?
So I can think of two times in particular that are really relevant. One that, I wasn't as directly involved as our third partner, he's our creative director, the rock star, the guy who makes things look that next notch better and technically incredible. But we had a video for one of our longtime dear friend and client. He's actually a musician, and he said, I want to do a fully animated music video. And we're like, oh, cool, that's really unique, especially in the country genre. Like, that's a very novel thing that hasn't been done a bunch. So we agreed, and we got into doing this video, and we didn't fully understand how much work was going to be involved in pulling this thing off. Just with animation and the workflow, it's just so tedious, and there's just so much that goes into every single frame. If you think about video as a series of moving pictures, and every 1 second of video is 24 frames, so you're animating for every 1 second. That's 24 frames that you got to animate in some way.
10 seconds, you're like at 240 frames.
Exactly.
Like, that's a lot.
So it was an incredibly challenging project. I think it turned out very well. It's the first song of Justin's called Neon Palm Tree. And yeah, we wanted to pull it off for him, and we were so thrilled to have that trust that he put in us for something that hadn't really been done before, at least that we had seen. And yeah, it was a technical challenge in terms of just getting the animation done. And then also creatively, the song was one that we had to really think about how we were going to take the lyrics and take the song and actually visualize that. So there was that challenge as well, not just the technical challenge, but the creative challenge of how do we keep this interesting visually without repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
So that was really notable one, I would say.
I'd be interested in watching that as well. Like you said, not a lot of country music is anime version. You typically got your guy there on his horseback with his cowboy hat, or you got guns and beers and stuff, right? But that's really cool to see. I'm definitely really interested in watching that one and how that played out too. But it's cool to know that you're not just limited to that, right? And you just video. You're able to do all works of video production to be able to come up with those ideas and bring that vision to life. But it's cool that you were able to perform on that, right?
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Tell me how networking, particular BNI, has influenced the growth of your business. I know you've been a member for how long?
Just over 3 years now.
Yeah.
And to say that, taking networking more seriously than BNI specifically, to say that it altered the course of our business would be, underselling it. So when I joined BNI, it was right before, the COVID outbreak, the first initial one.
Right.
And we were very much invested in the music industry. Probably 70-80% of our business was music and events. And then COVID happened and that industry shut down totally.
Wiped out.
Right. So we realized, oh man, we can't have all our eggs in one industry basket anymore. We really need to expand. And we always thought of the small business world as like, it's nice, but it wasn't something that we were passionate or wanted to build a business on.
Yeah.
And then we joined BNI and we realized, it's just getting to know people. And we really like meeting cool people and learning about them and learning about their story. And when we find the right people to work with and there's a good match, we get to bring that same creativity and that same flair from the music videos. We get to bring that to this other industry that is sorely lacking in creativity and that visual flair. So we found that through BNI and through networking, we found a passion for working with small business owners and telling their stories. So yeah, in terms of the networking side of things, that's so much of what filmmaking needs in general, beyond like, beyond corporate content. When we're doing our own, we do short films and documentaries and music videos, all this creative stuff. The amount of times that we've needed a random location, or does anyone know an actor, or random little asks that if we didn't have that network behind us, it would make it 10 times harder to source a prop or a person or a location. And I can't tell you the number of projects where we've put a call out to the BNI group and then an hour later, oh yeah, I know so-and-so and they own a tire shop that you guys can shoot in. Perfect. So it's beyond, the actual business that we've received through BNI directly and indirectly.
It's helped your operations.
It's helped our operations and helped just with all those random little things that pop up and having that support from a network standpoint has just been huge for us.
Yeah, it just shows the power of how BNI can really help small business, especially for people who like already established, people who are getting going. Like if you don't have those resources always readily available to you, then having that network of people to ask for that hand to be able to point you in the right direction, find you an actor, so on, that's going to really help you. One, do better work, and two, be able to work faster. So at the end of the day, you can make more money. Right.
Exactly. And it couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, totally. So what's next for you, Andrew? What's the plan here?
The next steps for us. So we're in a lovely home-based space right now that we love, and we're close to outgrowing it. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be looking at some commercial space, some studio space,
cool.
And just generally speaking, we're really dialing in on our offerings, and we're looking to revamp, our online presence, our website and stuff, and specifically the world of batching content is something that we're really diving into with a lot of our business clients. That's a whole thing. We could do probably a whole episode on that separately, so I won't dive into that now. But really diving into the batch content and hopefully a studio space to do that in.
Cool. I'm excited to see that studio space. I know you've been talking about that around
Yeah.
some of our other one-to-ones, but that
Yeah.
sounds really, really cool. Well,
Awesome. Thank you, Brereton. I
having-
appreciate the time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Appreciate you letting me interview you today and kind of diving into what we're doing. And
Yeah.
until next time, guys, thanks for joining on the Bold New Ideas podcast. Thanks for sharing your bold new ideas, Andrew, and helping everyone out. And until next time, thank you.